Hashtag the Discovery Commander Zyxthala of the Galactic Council's First Fleet adjusted her chromatic scales to a deep purple of disgust as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports from Sector 7749. The holographic display before her showed a small blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, populated by bipedal mammals that called themselves humans. These creatures have only just achieved faster-than-light travel, she muttered to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Crevimo, whose own scales shifted to an amused orange. They've been spacefaring for less than 2 of their centuries, and already they think they can join the galactic community. The bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dominion buzzed with quiet efficiency as crew members from a dozen different species went about their duties. The Galactic Council had been the undisputed ruler of this galaxy for over 50,000 years, bringing order and civilization to countless worlds. They had seen species like these humans countless times before, young, aggressive, primitive beings who thought their brief technological advancement made them special. Zyxthala's 4 eyes focused on the tactical readouts. Human military capabilities were laughably basic. Their largest warships were barely the size of Council patrol vessels, armed with crude chemical rockets and primitive energy weapons. Their armor was simple metal alloys, their shields non-existent. Most amusing of all, they still used biological soldiers rather than advanced combat constructs. Admiral Vorketh wants us to make contact, Crevimo reported, his scales shifting to a neutral blue-green. Standard protocol, we demonstrate our superiority, they submit to Council authority, and we add another tributary species to our records. Zyxthala's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among her species. How many ships are we bringing? Just our battle group. The Eternal Dominion, 3 heavy cruisers, and a dozen destroyers. The Admiral thought it would be sufficient to impress them. The commander's scales shifted to confident gold. In her 3 centuries of service, she had overseen the peaceful integration of 47 species into the Council's fold. The pattern was always the same, a show of overwhelming force, followed by the inevitable surrender of the primitive species. Those who cooperated were given technology and protection. Those who resisted were crushed. 3 days later, the Council fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Immediately, their sensors detected the crude human vessels moving to intercept them. Zyxthala watched with professional interest as 37 human ships formed a defensive line between the Council fleet and their home world. They're actually planning to fight us, Crevimo observed, his scales rippling with dark humor. How quaint. The human fleet consisted of vessels they called destroyers and cruisers, though by Council standards they were barely worthy of the name. Their flagship, a massive vessel called the US Defiance, was impressive by human standards but still dwarfed by the Eternal Dominion. Open a channel, Zyxthala commanded. Let's get this over with quickly. The view screen flickered to life, showing a human male in a dark uniform decorated with colorful ribbons and insignia. He appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and hard eyes that spoke of extensive combat experience. This was Admiral Marcus Chun, commander of the United Earth Space Fleet. I am Commander Zyxthala of the Galactic Council, she announced, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You will power down your weapons and prepare to receive a Council delegation. Your species has been selected for integration into our civilization. Admiral Chin's expression didn't change. Commander, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. This is Earth space, and you're not welcome here. I'm ordering you to leave immediately. Zyxthala's scales shifted to incredulous yellow. In all her years of service, no primitive species had ever refused the Council's generous offer of integration. Admiral Chun, perhaps you don't understand the situation. We represent a civilization that spans the galaxy. We have 49 member species, each more advanced than yours. We're offering you the chance to join us peacefully. I understand perfectly, Chun replied calmly. And my answer remains the same. Leave our system now, or we'll force you to leave. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent. Crevimo's scales had shifted to shocked white, while other crew members stared at the view screen in disbelief. No one threatened the Council. No one. Admiral, Zyxthala said slowly, you have 37 ships. We have 16, each one more powerful than your entire fleet combined. Are you truly willing to sacrifice your people for this pointless gesture of defiance? Shin leaned forward slightly. Commander, let me tell you something about humans. We've been fighting wars since we could hold sticks. We've fought each other. We've fought our environment. We've fought extinction itself. And we're still here. So yes, I'm willing to fight you if that's what it takes to protect my people. Ziyxtala cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Show them what they're dealing with. Target their flagship with a warning shot. The Eternal Dominion's primary energy cannon charged up, its targeting systems locking onto the human flagship. The weapon fired a precisely calculated burst designed to disable the vessel's engines without destroying it entirely. It was standard procedure, a demonstration of overwhelming force that would bring any reasonable species to their senses. But something was wrong. The energy beam struck the UES Defiance dead center, exactly where their calculations indicated. But instead of crippling the human vessel, the beam seemed to dissipate harmlessly across its hull. Impossible energy readings flooded the Council sensors as the human ship not only survived the attack, but seemed completely unaffected by it. What just happened? Ziyxtala demanded, her scales shifting to alarmed red. Krevimo frantically worked his console, trying to make sense of the sensor data. Commander, their hull composition, it's not showing up properly on our scanners. The energy signature is completely unlike anything in our databases. Before Ziyxtala could respond, the human fleet opened fire. Crude chemical rockets and primitive energy beams lanced out from their vessels, weapons that should have been utterly ineffective against Council shields and armor. But, impossibly, the weapons struck with devastating force. 3 Council destroyers were destroyed in the opening volley, their advanced shields failing catastrophically against what should have been harmless attacks. Evasive maneuvers. Ziyxtala shouted. All ships, return fire. The battle that followed defied everything the Council knew about warfare. Human ships moved with impossible agility, their pilots pulling maneuvers that should have killed their biological crews from acceleration forces alone. Their weapons struck with far more power than their energy signature suggested, tearing through Council defenses like they were made of paper. Worst of all, the humans seemed to anticipate every Council tactic. When the Eternal Dominion attempted to use its quantum disruptor cannons, the human ships dispersed in a pattern that minimized casualties. When Council fighters launched, the humans were already in position to intercept them. It was as if they knew exactly what the Council was going to do before they did it. Within an hour, the mighty Council battle group was in full retreat. 8 of their 16 ships had been destroyed, including 2 of the heavy cruisers. The Eternal Dominion itself had taken severe damage, its proud hull scarred by human weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate its armor. As they limped back toward hyperspace, Ziyxtala stared at the tactical display in shock. The humans hadn't lost a single ship. Not one. Her scales had turned a sickly gray of fear and confusion. Get me Admiral Vorketh, she ordered quietly. Priority 1 transmission. Hours later, in the secure briefing room of the Council flagship Supreme Authority, Admiral Vorketh reviewed Ziyxtala's after-action report with growing disbelief. The elderly Corvanian's tentacles writhed with agitation as he processed the impossible data. You're telling me that a primitive species with chemical rockets defeated a Council battle group, he said finally. Ziyxtala's scales remained the gray of shame. Sir, I know how it sounds. But the evidence is undeniable. Their weapons were far more effective than our intelligence suggested, their defenses held against our best efforts, and their tactical coordination was flawless. Vorketh's chief scientist, Dr. Melvek of the crystalline Zephyrian race, flickered with deep thought. There's something we're missing here. No species jumps from primitive chemical weapons to Council-level combat effectiveness overnight. It's physically impossible. Then, how do you explain what happened? Ziyxtala asked. Dr. Melvek's crystal structure pulsed with various colors as he considered the data. I have a theory, but it's disturbing. What if the humans aren't as primitive as we thought? What if they've been deliberately hiding their true capabilities? To what end? Vorketh demanded. Think about it, Melvek continued. A species that appears primitive attracts less attention. Other civilizations underestimate them, approach with reduced forces. It would be the perfect strategy for a species that wanted to avoid unwanted contact until they were ready. Zyaxthala felt her scales shifting to deep blue fear. You're suggesting this was a trap? I'm suggesting we need more information before we make any more assumptions about these humans, Melvek replied. And we need to find out how extensive their deception really is. Admiral Vorketh's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. Very well. Dr. Melvek, I want you to compile everything we know about human space activities over the past century. Look for inconsistencies, anomalies, anything that doesn't fit with our assessment of their technological level. Already on it, sir, the Zephyrian scientist replied. But, Admiral, there's something else. The quantum signatures from the human weapons, they're familiar somehow. I can't place it, but I've seen similar readings before. Where? Melvek's crystal structure dimmed with uncertainty. That's what I'm trying to remember. But if I'm right about what those readings represent, then we may have seriously underestimated just how dangerous these humans really are. As the Council fleet regrouped at their nearest starbase, emergency sessions were called across the galaxy. For the first time in millennia, the mighty Galactic Council had been defeated in open battle by a supposedly primitive species. The implications sent shockwaves through their civilization. But they had no idea that their first encounter with humanity was just the beginning. Hidden in the depths of space, human ships equipped with cloaking technology that shouldn't have existed watched and waited. Admiral Chen's victory had been impressive, but it was only a small taste of what humanity was truly capable of. The Galactic Council was about to learn a harsh lesson about the galaxy's true apex predators. But first, they would need to uncover the truth about humanity's real origins and the ancient secret that would change everything they thought they knew about galactic history. In a secure facility deep beneath Earth's surface, Dr. Sarah Mitchell reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. The combat test had gone even better than expected. After centuries of careful preparation, humanity was finally ready to reveal itself to the galaxy. But the real test was yet to come. The investigation. Dr. Melvek's crystalline form pulsed with frustrated orange light as he sorted through millennia of galactic records in the vast archives of Corvinus Prime. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliating defeat at Sol, and the Zephyrian scientist had been working around the clock to understand how the humans had achieved their impossible victory. Computer, cross-reference all energy signatures from the Sol engagement with historical battle records, he commanded, his voice creating harmonic resonances in his crystal matrix. The holographic display around him shifted, showing thousands of energy pattern analyses spanning 50,000 years of Council military history. Most showed the familiar signatures of known technologies, plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, antimatter warheads. But there, buried deep in the archives, were readings that made Melvek's entire structure flash with shock. Impossible, he whispered. The energy signatures from the human weapons matched records from the Void War, the most catastrophic conflict in galactic history. 50,000 years ago, an unknown enemy had emerged from the galactic rim, wielding weapons that cut through Council defenses like they were nothing. Entire star systems had been sterilized, billions of lives lost, before the mysterious attackers had simply vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. The Council had spent millennia trying to understand the technology used in those ancient battles, but the weapon signatures had been unlike anything in their databases. Until now, Melvek activated an emergency communication link to Admiral Vorketh. Sir, you need to see this immediately. Within an hour, the Admiral's command staff had assembled in the secure archives. Vorketh's tentacles writhed with growing alarm as Melvek presented his findings. You're telling me the humans are using Void War technology? The Admiral demanded. Not using it, Melvek corrected, his crystal form pulsing deep red with grave concern. They are the Void War technology. The energy patterns are identical, Admiral. The quantum signatures, the gravitational distortions, even the subspace resonance frequencies. The humans aren't just connected to the ancient enemy, they are the ancient enemy. Commander Zyaxthala, who had been listening in growing horror, felt her scales shift to the pale white of terror. But that's impossible. The Void War entities were described as beings of pure energy, living shadows that consumed entire worlds. Humans are biological organisms. Are they? Melvek asked quietly. How much do we really know about human biology? Our scans of their ships showed energy signatures that don't match any known organic patterns. What if what we're seeing isn't their true form? Admiral Vorketh's elderly face had grown pale. Dr. Melvek, are you suggesting that the greatest threat our civilization has ever faced has been hiding on a backwater world for 50,000 years? Before Melvek could answer, urgent alerts began flashing throughout the archive. A communications officer rushed into the chamber, his scales bright red with panic. Admiral, we're receiving priority alerts from across the galaxy. 17 Council worlds have gone dark in the past 6 hours. No distress signals, no communications. They've just stopped transmitting. Vorketh's tentacles coiled tight with dread. Show me. The holographic display shifted to show a galactic map with ominous dark zones spreading across Council space. Each darkened area represented a star system that had simply ceased all communication simultaneously. Sir, the communications officer continued. The pattern of disappearances, it's moving toward the galactic core, toward Corvinus Prime. Melvek's crystal structure began resonating with harmonic frequencies of pure fear. Admiral, this is exactly what happened during the Void War. Worlds went silent one by one as the enemy advanced. We have to evacuate the capital immediately. But Vorketh was studying the pattern more carefully, his experienced tactical mind recognizing something the others had missed. No, look at the timing. Each world goes dark exactly 4 hours after the previous one. That's not the pattern of an attacking force. That's the pattern of a coordinated withdrawal. Withdrawal? Zwaxthala asked. The humans aren't attacking these worlds, the Admiral realized with growing horror. They're pulling their agents out. The implications hit the assembled officers like a physical blow. For 50,000 years, the Galactic Council had believed themselves the masters of the galaxy. But what if they had been wrong? What if they had been the subjects all along, monitored and controlled by an intelligence they never suspected existed? How many worlds have human populations? Melvek asked quietly. The communications officer's hands shook as he accessed the demographic databases. Sir, according to our records, humans have established small colonies or research stations on 347 Council worlds. They've been gradually spreading throughout our territory for the past 2 centuries, always in small numbers, always claiming to be explorers or traders. 347, Vorketh repeated numbly. That's nearly half our major worlds. Suddenly, every human they had ever encountered took on a sinister new significance. The humble traders who had seemed so impressed by Council technology. The eager researchers who had begged to study in their universities. The quiet diplomats who had sat in on countless strategic planning sessions. Had they all been spies? Had humanity been watching, learning, planning for 50,000 years? Get me the historical records, Zwaxthala said urgently. Every first contact report with humans. I want to know exactly when and how they approached each Council world. As the data flowed across the screens, a chilling pattern emerged. Humans had first made contact with Council worlds shortly after major military conflicts or natural disasters, always offering aid and assistance. They had integrated themselves into Council society so gradually and skillfully that no one had questioned their presence. But there was another pattern that made Vorketh's blood run cold. Every major Council military disaster of the past 2 centuries had been preceded by human advisors offering tactical consultation. Every failed campaign had involved human allies providing intelligence support. They've been sabotaging us, he whispered. For 200 years, they've been ensuring our military remained weak, our expansion slowed, our technology stagnant. Dr. Melvek's analysis confirmed their worst fears. The quantum signatures he had detected weren't just from human weapons. They were embedded in Council technology itself. Humanity had been quietly introducing subtle modifications to their systems, creating backdoors and weaknesses that could be exploited when the time was right. Sir, the communications officer reported with a trembling voice. I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. It's directed specifically to you, Admiral Vorketh. The Admiral's tentacles tightened. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show a human female, middle-aged with prematurely gray hair and eyes that held depths of knowledge that seemed impossibly ancient. She wore simple clothing, but There was an aura of absolute authority about her that made the council officers instinctively step back. "I am Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Director of Human Strategic Operations," she said calmly. "Admiral Vorketh, I believe we need to talk." Vorketh found his voice with difficulty. "Dr. Mitchell, I take it you're responsible for the recent developments in our territory." "I'm responsible for many things, Admiral, including the fact that your civilization has been allowed to exist for the past 50,000 years. Her words were spoken without arrogance, simply as a statement of fact. "Allowed to exist?" Zyaxthala snarled, her scales flashing angry red. "Your primitive species thinks it allows us to exist?" Dr. Mitchell's gaze shifted to the council commander with what might have been amusement. "Primitive? Commander Zyaxthala, your people have made impressive progress since we guided you from your homeworld. The Corvanian Empire has grown from a single-planet civilization to a modest interstellar power. You should be proud." "Guided us?" Vorketh demanded. "What are you talking about?" "The beings you call the first teachers," Mitchell explained patiently. "The mysterious benefactors who gave your ancestors the secret of faster-than-light travel, who provided the technological foundation for your early civilization. That was us, Admiral. Humanity has been shepherding the development of galactic civilization for 50 millennia." The archive chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of Melvek's increasingly agitated crystal structure. Everything they knew about their history, their achievements, their very identity as a species was being systematically destroyed. "But why?" Vorketh asked finally. "If you've had this power all along, why hide? Why allow us to build the council?" Mitchell's expression grew thoughtful. "Because we needed to see if you could learn to work together. Whether the younger races could develop beyond their primitive instincts for conquest and dominance. The council has been an experiment, you might say." "An experiment," Melvek repeated, his voice resonating with bitter harmonics. "Our entire civilization has been your experiment." "Not just yours," Mitchell corrected. "Every species in this galaxy. We've been watching, guiding, testing. Some species, like the Corvanians and Zephyrians, showed promise. Others," she paused meaningfully, "others required more direct intervention." Zyaxthala suddenly understood. The hegemony wars, the stellar plague, the quantum storm disasters. Those weren't natural events, were they? "Sometimes a species needs to learn hard lessons," Mitchell said simply. "Sometimes they need to be reminded of their place in the greater scheme of things." Admiral Vorketh felt a lifetime of certainties crashing down around him. The great Corvanian Empire, which had prided itself on its conquest of the stars, had been nothing more than children playing at war under the watchful eyes of their true masters. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward slightly, and, for the first time, the council officers caught a glimpse of something vast and alien behind her human features. For just an instant, her eyes reflected depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. "Now, Admiral, you learn whether your species is ready to graduate to the next level of existence. Whether you can put aside your pride and accept your place as junior partners in something far greater than your small empire. And if we refuse?" Mitchell's smile was genuinely sad. "Then, you'll discover why we're called the apex predators, Admiral. And, trust me, that's not a lesson you want to learn." The transmission ended, leaving the council leadership standing in stunned silence. Outside the archive windows, the lights of Corvanus Prime glittered in the darkness, a civilization built on foundations that had just proved to be illusion. In the depths of space, human ships that had been hiding for millennia began to stir. The time for subtlety was ending. Soon, the galaxy would learn what it meant to face humanity unleashed. #The Revelation. Admiral Vorketh stood on the observation deck of the Supreme Authority as it drifted in the empty space between stars. 3 days had passed since Dr. Mitchell's transmission, and the Council fleet had evacuated Corvanus Prime as reports continued to stream in of worlds going dark across the galaxy. The mighty Galactic Council, ruler of 49 species across thousands of star systems, had been reduced to a refugee fleet hiding in interstellar space. And they still didn't understand what they were truly facing. "Admiral," Commander Zyaxthala approached, her scales a muted gray of defeat. "We're receiving reports from the outer territories. It's not just our core worlds going dark. The entire galactic communication network is shutting down in a coordinated pattern. Vorketh's tentacles coiled with helpless frustration. How is that possible? The quantum communication grid spans the entire galaxy. It would take centuries to coordinate a shutdown of that magnitude. Unless, Dr. Melvek's crystalline voice resonated from behind them. It was designed to be shut down from the beginning. The Admiral turned to face the Zephyrian scientist, whose crystal structure was pulsing with the deep blue of terrible understanding. What have you found? I've been analyzing the fundamental architecture of our technology, Melvek explained. Everything from our faster-than-light drives to our communication systems to our weapons. Admiral, it's all based on theoretical principles that were discovered by researchers who had extensive contact with humans. ZYX scales shifted to alarmed orange. You're saying humans influenced our technological development? More than influenced. They've been controlling it from the beginning. Every major breakthrough in council science can be traced back to research teams that included human advisors or human-educated scientists. We thought we were developing our own technology, but we were actually being given carefully selected pieces of human science. The implication struck Vorketh like a physical blow. They've been managing our technological advancement for millennia, keeping us powerful enough to be useful, but never powerful enough to be a threat. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alert systems activated. Tactical displays throughout the observation deck lit up with proximity warnings as massive shapes began materializing out of hyperspace around the Council fleet. What emerged from the swirling energy vortexes defied everything the Council knew about ship design. The human vessels were enormous, each one dwarfing even the mighty Supreme Authority. But it wasn't their size that made the Council officers stare in shock. It was their impossible beauty. The ships seemed to be made of living darkness, their hulls flowing and shifting like liquid shadow given form. Patterns of light danced across their surfaces in hypnotic spirals, and their very presence seemed to bend space around them. These weren't machines built by any known technology. They were something far more fundamental. Admiral, the tactical officer reported in a voice barely above a whisper. I'm reading 17 vessels, each one approximately 40 kilometers long. Energy signatures are. Admiral, our sensors can't properly analyze them. It's like they exist partially outside normal space. One of the shadow ships moved closer to the Supreme Authority, and, suddenly, Dr. Mitchell's voice filled the bridge, speaking directly into their minds without any communication equipment. Admiral Vorketh, permission to come aboard? I think it's time you learn the truth about what humanity really is. Minutes later, the Council leadership gathered in the main conference chamber as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. A section of the air simply opened like a doorway, and Dr. Mitchell stepped through what appeared to be a portal in space itself. But the being that entered was no longer pretending to be entirely human. While she retained her basic human form, there was something fundamentally different about her presence. She seemed to exist in more dimensions than the three-dimensional beings around her could perceive, and her eyes held depths that reflected the birth and death of stars. Please sit, she said gently, and, despite themselves, the Council officers found themselves obeying. There was an authority in her voice that seemed to resonate with the fundamental forces of the universe. You want to know what humans really are, Mitchell continued, settling into a chair that had definitely not been there moments before. The truth is both simpler and more complex than you imagine. Admiral Vorketh found his voice with difficulty. You're not from Earth, are you? Oh, but we are, Mitchell replied with a sad smile. Earth is our home, just as it always has been. But we're not quite what you think we are. Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about the early history of your galaxy? Dr. Melvek's crystal structure flickered uncertainly. The galaxy was formed approximately 12 billion years ago. The first star systems capable of supporting life emerged about 8 billion years ago. Good. And when did the first intelligent species evolve? According to our records, the ethereal collective achieved sapience approximately 6 billion years ago, though they transcended to pure energy forms long before the current galactic civilization emerged. Mitchell nodded approvingly. Excellent. Now, when did humanity evolve on Earth? ZYX checked her datapad. According to your own historical records, modern humans emerged approximately 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years, Mitchell repeated softly. A blink of an eye in galactic terms. So young, so primitive. Except that's not quite accurate, is it? She gestured, and the air around them shifted to show a holographic display of the galaxy as it appeared billions of years ago. 6 billion years ago, when the ethereal collective was just learning to harness fire, something else was happening on a small planet orbiting a young yellow star. The first humans were taking their first steps toward consciousness. The display zoomed in to show ancient Earth, but it was an Earth unlike anything in the historical records. Cities of impossible beauty stretched across the continents, and ships that made the current human vessels look primitive soared through the skies. 6 billion years, Vorketh whispered in disbelief. We are the first race, Mitchell explained calmly. The first sapient species to evolve in this galaxy. We watched the birth of the first stars, guided the formation of the first planets, and witnessed the emergence of every species that would follow us. Dr. Melvek's harmonic frequencies shifted to confused resonance. But if that's true, why do your archaeological records show recent evolution? Why do you appear to be a young species? Mitchell's smile was infinitely patient. Because we chose to be. 6 billion years is a very long time, Dr. Melvek. Long enough to see empires rise and fall, to watch species evolve and transcend or destroy themselves, to witness the birth and death of entire galactic civilizations. The holographic display shifted to show the ebb and flow of galactic history. Countless species appeared, built vast empires, and then vanished into transcendence, extinction, or transformation. Through it all, one constant remained: small populations of apparently primitive humans, always in the background, always watching. We learned early that immortality without purpose is a curse, Mitchell continued. So we chose to limit ourselves, to experience life as mortals while retaining our deeper knowledge. Every few thousand years, we would reset our civilization, live as if we were truly young, and rediscover the joy of growth and learning. But you never truly forgot, HFY said, beginning to understand. No, deep in our genetic memory, in the quantum structure of our consciousness, we retain the knowledge of eons. When necessary, we could access that knowledge. When necessary, we could remember what we truly are. Admiral Vorketh's mind reeled with the implications. The Void War. That was you showing your true power. That was us being forced to act directly, Mitchell corrected. 50,000 years ago, a species called the Devourers emerged from the galactic rim. They were a truly hostile force, beings that consumed not just matter and energy, but consciousness itself. They threatened to end not just current galactic civilization, but the possibility of any future civilization. The display showed the terrible war that had followed. The Devourers had been unlike anything the current council had faced, entities that could erase entire star systems from existence, leaving behind nothing but empty void. The council races of that era couldn't stop them, so we were forced to reveal a fraction of our true capabilities. We drove the Devourers back to the intergalactic void and sealed the dimensional rifts they had used to enter our galaxy. And then, you vanished again, Melvek said. We returned to our chosen role as observers and guides. We seeded the current galactic civilization with the technologies and knowledge they would need to grow and develop. We watched as the modern council emerged from the ashes of the old galaxy. HFY's scales had shifted to deep purple thoughtfulness. But something changed. Why reveal yourselves now? Dr. Mitchell's expression grew serious. Because the seals are failing. The Devourers are stirring in the void between galaxies, and they will return within the next few centuries. When they do, the current council won't be able to stop them any more than the last one was. The conference chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled over the council officers like a physical presence. So what happens now? Vorketh asked finally. Now you have a choice, Mitchell replied. You can accept the truth about your place in the galactic hierarchy and work with us to prepare for what's coming. We'll share technologies and knowledge that will advance your civilization by millennia. You'll become true partners in defending the galaxy. And if we refuse? Mitchell's eyes grew infinitely sad. Then, we'll do what we've done before. We'll reset galactic civilization, preserve the promising species in hidden refuges, and start over with new races that might prove more adaptable. It's happened before, Admiral. It can happen again. The choice was no choice at all, and everyone in the room knew it. The Council had been living in an illusion of power and independence. The reality was that they were children who had been allowed to play at being adults, and now the time for play was ending. "What do you need from us?" Vorketh asked quietly. Dr. Mitchell smiled, and for the first time since her arrival, she looked genuinely human again. "Your willingness to learn, Admiral. Your species have grown wise in the past 50,000 years. You've learned to cooperate across species lines, to value diplomacy over conquest, to see strength in diversity rather than uniformity. Those lessons will be crucial in the battles to come." She stood, and reality began to bend around her once again. "You'll receive new technologies within the next few days. Your ships will be upgraded, your weapons enhanced, your defenses strengthened. But, most importantly, you'll gain access to the true history of the galaxy and your place in it." As she prepared to leave through the dimensional portal, Admiral Vorketh called out one last question. "Dr. Mitchell, what are humans really? What are you beneath all the illusions and limitations you place on yourselves?" The being who had once been human turned back with an expression of infinite compassion. "We are what every sapient species becomes, Admiral, given enough time and wisdom. We are the gardeners of reality, the shepherds of consciousness, the guardians of possibility." She paused at the portal. "In time, if your species continues to grow and learn, you might become the same thing. That's the real choice before you, not just survival, but evolution into something greater than you ever imagined possible." The portal closed, leaving the Council officers alone with the magnitude of their new reality. Outside the observation ports, the human ships had vanished as silently as they had arrived. But they had left behind something more valuable than any technology: hope. The knowledge that they were not alone in an uncaring universe, but part of a vast community of consciousness that spanned billions of years and countless species. The galaxy was larger, older, and stranger than they had ever imagined. But it was also more wonderful, filled with possibilities they were only beginning to understand. Admiral Vorketh stood and looked out at the stars with new eyes. Somewhere in the darkness, ancient guardians were preparing for a war that would determine the fate of everything. And for the first time in millennia, they would not fight alone. The age of illusions was ending. The age of truth was about to begin. And humanity, the galaxy's patient shepherds, were finally ready to teach their children how to defend their cosmic home.